blocks from here, down by the Chieftain, kind of down an alley, and then they have a little, like literally it's a window, it's like a hole in the wall. You can go up and order a cheeseburger. Yeah. So my best Tempest story was at this conference a couple years ago. I went and they give all the speakers a bottle of wine. So somehow I got two. And me and two other speakers went and we drank all 4 bottles of wine. And then we went to the Tempest to drink more. And my phone ran out of battery, so I panicked. And I went home. And because the next day my son was born, so or my third son. So I figured it wasn't good to be at the Tempest with 0 battery on my phone.
When you're on call.
When my wife, yeah, when I'm on call. So it's good times.
What the difference between this and the Apple
Yeah, so he's asking what's the difference between Chromecast and Apple TV. They're similar products. Chromecast is more, I would say, like a next generation product. So it's more driven off of your phone. So there is no remote control. The phone's your remote. The apps that you already have on your phone support Chromecast. If you already have YouTube or HBO Go or HBO Now or Netflix, any of these apps, they're already, all the code's already in that app. So what time is it? 1 more minute till the official start, but like I said, I think we'll start a couple minutes late. So how many of you are from San Francisco? Locals? Half, maybe? Where's everybody else from?
Boston.
Boston!
Boston.
Boston, all right.
Yeah.
Sacramento?
England.
England? You came here just for this talk? Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah. So I'm from Mountain View. So just what is that? Maybe 45 minutes away. $55 in an Uber. Anybody further? What's that? I work at Google in Mountain View. Yep. So my commute is like 45 minutes because it takes sometimes an hour to take one kid to one school and another kid to another school, sign them in, you know. So it's very. I'm just glad I live in Mountain View. My commute otherwise would be like 2 hours. So what brings you here from England?
This conference.
Awesome. World-renowned HTML5 DevConf.
I gotta find the other one where we can go to England.
The other what?
I gotta find the reverse where we can go to England.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
$50 though.
This conference is only $50? 75? Wow.
Yeah, they're really brutal.
Wow, $75. That's a great deal. Anybody else come from somewhere not local?
Reno.
Reno. Awesome. Uh-oh. Mike just tagged me in a photo. So Mike, put you on the spot. While we're here early, why don't you tell people about the modern web UI?
Sure.
So Mike runs a really cool meetup. It's local, and so a lot of you guys are local. And so if you're looking for more, great web content down in the South Bay, Mike runs an amazing group. It's really awesome. Highly recommend it. They meet at places like Yahoo or like maybe Yahoo, definitely Mozilla. Okay, so tell them more. So tell them about your group. What's coming up, or
Yeah, so we kind of foster cross-pollination through our critical community, so we're not like React or Angular or a number of users. We're kind of trying to get a little bit of everything. The next one is November 3rd, which is coming up on 2 weeks at a park where we're having Godfrey Chen from the Salesforce team talk about
So it's on meetup.com, and it's Modern Web UI.
Yes. Check it out. We have great videos too. If you want to check our YouTube channel out.
Yeah. Oh, Tomomi's here. Hello. All right. Any other awesome questions, folks? So we'll get started. Maybe what? 2 minutes? 2 minutes sounds good. Does anybody want to start now? So I was going to start at like 2:35, 2 minutes, just because like it's so hard. People are like,
Totally fine.
yeah.
Because they just needed my help in there for 1 second.
Oh yeah, go
So
for
would
it.
you like me to set the lights up for like to illuminate the stage?
Whatever you want.
That's what I've been doing for the other people.
Perfect. We're going to turn on the nap time lights. Whoa. I'm not going to stand there or here. All right. Cool.
So you won't be using the microphone today.
No, I think, yeah, it's good. How's everybody doing? Good. Awesome. So the folks coming from abroad or from other, you guys sticking around for a while to enjoy San Francisco? No? Were you here over the weekend?
No.
No! Wow. This is I'll tell Ann, she'll be excited. All right, I guess we should go ahead and get started. Sounds good? Awesome. So welcome everybody, thanks a lot for coming. So my name is Kevin Nilson, I work at Google, and I'm a technical solutions engineer. And so what that means is I kind of go out and help all the top partners for Chromecast. So how many of you have a Chromecast? Yeah, cool, everybody. Anybody have 2? 3? 1, 2, 4? No, okay, so I have at least 100, so probably more than all of you combined. They're really great, and all the content that you watch, those are the people I help. So Netflix, HBO, Hulu, Pandora, all these kind of companies, that's kind of what I go out. I run a team, and we're actually hiring, so if you are interested, let me know. But what we do is we write code for partners. So we'll write code for some of these partners to do their Chromecast integration, and then for other people, we'll answer their questions and things like that. So a lot of times when I give these talks, somebody out there will be out there who I've worked real closely with. This is kind of fun. So this is kind of an old slide from about 3 months ago, but it's kind of fun. It was sort of a month before and after that time. I don't remember which conference I was speaking at, but this is kind of the whirlwind of, you know, I went out and did a workcation, went to Santa Monica in LA, visited companies like ABC and Disney, Hulu, Red Bull, went to China for a little bit, visited Huawei, did Forward.js a few hours after I got back from there, and then it's not on the map because it wasn't planned, but like a second after I landed from one of these, from New York, I went to Stockholm to help Spotify. So anyway, I spend a lot of time on airplanes, go all over the place. It's a lot of fun, really enjoy it, and it's really cool to see all the companies and cultures and how they all work, so lots of fun. But with that, we should jump into the talk. So Chromecast, the TV, you know, sitting in the living room is not, you know, it's about being a couch potato, relaxing, enjoying, but it's also nice to sort of sit with family, friends, loved ones, kind of enjoying that time together, right? So it's something that's technology-based, but you're able to spend it with others, which is really nice. And people are spending like a tremendous amount of time in front of the TV. And so, you know, my house, I only have one TV, and I actually never watch TV, so it's sort of ironic that I work on Chromecast, but somebody's making up that time, and folks are spending, you know, 3.5 hours a day on TV in the US. So It's a tremendous amount of time, and I guess the punchline there is, for developers, it's a great opportunity. And so I think, it's sort of this next wave of where is going to be the next, billion people moving, movement where you can do things in technology. And obviously, I think the TV is possibly one of those areas that you may want to consider. And hopefully that's why you're here. Cool. So what is Chromecast? You guys all have one. You kind of know at least how it works. But some of the more details, $35. It's super cheap. HDMI plugs in the TV. We have CEC support, so commands like play, pause, things like that can work from a real traditional remote control to your TV for some televisions. So it's really cool, simple product. It's similar to things like a Roku or an Apple TV, those kind of things. Android TVs, you probably heard about these, announced about a year and a half ago at Google I/O. We have the Android TVs. What's cool is all the Android TVs, which is kind of Android built into the television, all of those support Chromecast. And so if you write code for Chromecast, it's not going to just run in the dongle, but it's going to run in those TVs as well. And then another thing that I haven't talked about here is speakers. So we have a lot of speakers that are out there. We announced at CES, from Sony, Denon, LG, those kind of people. Cool. So I guess 2 weeks ago, we launched new hardware. So does anybody have the new Chromecast? No. I should have done some giveaways. If I was, my last talk I gave giveaways, but I was off last week on paternity leave, so I didn't do that. So the new dongle's nice that I showed in the previous picture. What's cool is it's got a 5 gigahertz and BLE. So there's multiple antennas in it instead of just one, so you get better reception. And then the real cool new announcement was the Chromecast audio. So just like with televisions, you can take a little dongle and make your sort of dumb TV a smart TV. Now you can take all the speakers you have, sort of dust them off, all these ones that, you'd love to take the music from your phone and get them onto those speakers, and you really don't have a way to do that. Now with a $35 dongle, you can plug that in and make those speakers a smart speakers. It's pretty cool. And the other thing that a lot of people don't know, it's not released yet, but we have announced it, is we have multi-zone or multi-room support. So you could take speakers and put them in different rooms. And yeah, it's pretty awesome. So you can take speakers from different manufacturers, different size, shapes, whatever, put them all throughout your house, and then it all will sync and play. And so it works amazing, but there's no UI for it yet. So I can set it up with command line stuff, telling IP addresses and assigning masters and things. But I believe we said it's coming out this year, but I don't really know exactly when it's coming out. But it works great. So we demoed it a few weeks ago to the press and big event. It's really, really nice. So it's sort of like a Sonos or something like that, but where Sonos you're spending $1,000 a speaker or whatever it is. This is really, really awesome. So we had a question earlier about the differences between like an Apple TV and a Chromecast. And really, Chromecast is very centric around the phone. So at Google, we really think the phone is sort of the future of the television and not the remote control. So we want to take this intimate, 17-inch experience and bring it together with a 10-foot experience, and that's really what Chromecast is. And, for us, I think if you think back to how many times have you lost your remote control, right? It's always lost, right? It's under the couch, it's who knows, it's lost for months at a time, right? Where the phone, you never lose your phone. If you lose your phone, within 20 minutes, and you spend like the next, several hours looking for it. You have Find My Phone apps, you have all these, I send my kids on searches for my phone. So it's really cool. For us, we kind of think remotes are sort of an old school way, and we're driving towards this. Cool. We support every platform, so iOS, Android, web, they're all the same. So kind of funny story is myself, I joined Google as an Android and web sort of expert, we'll say. And I joined Google on a team of people who are all Android and web experts. And I was really looking to do something interesting and own sort of a big piece of things. And my boss said, well, the best opportunity here in this team is iOS. And so I went out, learned iOS, and actually became the sort of Chromecast iOS expert, which is kind of funny that I joined Google to do iOS. So, anyway, lots of fun there. Yeah. Yeah, so if you have your iPhone and you have an HBO app or a Netflix app or whatever it is, and you're watching the content, you'll get a little icon, which I'll walk through in a minute. But the support for an iPhone versus an Android versus the Chrome browser, they're all the same. iPhone is definitely a first-class citizen. We generally see equal traffic from both platforms. Yeah, cool. So some of the technology I'll talk about is casting, is Google Cast. So Google Cast, I'll talk a lot about Google Cast rather than Chromecast. When we first launched, we talked a lot about Chromecast. Google Cast is actually the technology, and Chromecast is just one piece of hardware, right? We have senders, so that would be iOS, Android, or the Chrome browser. And then we have the receiver, and that's the code that runs in the TV. And what's really cool about the receiver is it's really the Chrome browser. So in that little dongle is a Chrome browser. All the code in the TV is a Chrome browser. You play videos with a video tag in HTML. You do all your overlays with CSS. It's all written in JavaScript. So it's a really cool, for web developers, it's a really great platform. When you compare it to something like Apple TV or Roku, where you have to learn a new specific, domain-specific language there, it's really easy for developers. The last thing is casting, and this is the notion of taking a piece of content from your sender and putting it up on the TV. So how does it work? Sort of behind the scenes, you're watching a video streamed from the cloud straight to your phone, and then you look up, you see that big TV, and you say, wow, I wish I was watching it there. Remember, you have a Chromecast. You look down at your phone, you see a little cast icon, you click that, send it over, and then what happens is the dongle goes out to the cloud directly, and then it streams from the cloud out to your TV. So the phone is not really a part of this picture. It's really going from the cloud straight to your TV. So it's not using up your data plan, it's not making your phone hot, burning up your battery, anything like that. But the phone is still connected, very similar to WebSockets. We used to use WebSockets. Now we use a TLS connection, but basically the phone has the ability to do things like changing the video, adjusting the volume, scrubbing. Any of these kind of commands can happen from the phone over to the TV. And the really cool thing is the phone or the laptop can disappear. And so that sender can disappear and things will continue to work on the TV. So for me, father of 3, I tend to pop something on the TV for the kids, disappear, and go do something else. So it's cool. So here's a cool picture. This is like a very hello world receiver, so the code that runs in the TV. I wrote this. This is a desk where I used to sit a while ago. And very, very simple receiver that just says hello cast developers. And when I run it, this is what I get on the TV. So does anyone have any guess? Or maybe not guess. Does anyone know why this is what shows up? Anyone? Why? So it's basically cut off. Mike.
Is it like an Overscan this year?
The winner is Mike. Very good. So TVs have something called Overscan, and it's basically from older standards where things kind of wrap around. And oh, somebody's calling me. Let's turn that off. Anyway, here you can see some of the standards and about that, right? From just some idea about keeping this whole sort of 5% on the sides free. And if you remember back from whenever you were watching shows, you'll remember actors' faces and things tend to be not too close to the sides, not too close to the top. And where this really comes to place for something like Chromecast is more logos and things like that. So if you have a company logo or your pause state and you're showing the title or the time, you need to make sure that's inset a little bit and you don't require those outside borders because they're going to change. So this is actually, whoops, this is actually the default setup of the TV I use for work, is like that. So you can turn it on and off on a lot of the newer TVs, but that's what you get. Yeah. So I'm kind of going through some like general tips that, you know, they apply to Chromecast, but they also apply to all the other platforms. So another one is when working with second screen stuff, when you have that second screen, you want to make sure dialogues, messages, things like that don't happen up on the TV, right? You know, so a lot of people think with Chromecast, oh, I can just take my website and pop it up on the TV, and we're good to go. But think about, you know, like if you had a YouTube video and then it shows a skip ad button. Like you don't want that on your TV because you can't touch your TV. So, you know, this is definitely something my kids have tried many times to touch things on the TV, but they can't do it. And so definitely, you know, keep that in mind. It's a big kind of just a paradigm shift to be aware of. The next thing is burn-in. So I'm sure lots of you remember going to your schools, the library, wherever it is, and you see these burned-in screens, old CRTs. But does anyone know in the television space where this is still an issue today? Plasmas, absolutely. So plasmas have big burn-in problems. And then how much time can you leave something on the screen before you start to damage a plasma TV? Anyone? 2 hours, 2 days, 20 minutes? Yeah, so I'm sort of a 5-minute guy, but that's a very conservative, you know, it depends on who you ask. It's between 5 and 15, 5 and 10, 5 and 20, but 5 minutes you're definitely safe. And so imagine, you know, Chromecast at the end of a movie and you're stuck showing your company's logo, it needs to move around. Or imagine you write a music app that's playing music. You're showing the album art. You know, it needs to move around and do interesting things. A lot of the apps will make them full screen and then cut them down to 50% and move them every 2 minutes around the screen. Things like that. A pause state. Someone pauses and then that's partially burned into their screen. It's probably not good, right? So keep this in mind. It's still a big issue today for TVs. Still a lot of plasmas out there. So now I want to talk about design checklist and sort of the importance of that and talk a little bit about, even though this is a web conference, I want to talk a little bit about mobile. So I'm sure all of you are aware of, you know, when you go out and you submit an app to Apple to go into the App Store, Apple's going to do a very extensive check of it, and then they're going to tell you accepted, rejected, right? So at Google, we feel the same way. We feel just as important about UX. But we think that the best apps will get voted to the top. They're going to get 3 stars in the Play Store, and they're going to get more downloads. And so we don't believe in rejecting things. We think things that are built that are confusing, you know, we just let those be. But what we do is make sure, you know, we publish UX guidelines, and the apps that get featured actually pass these UX checklists. And so many times at conferences like this, I'll go to lunch and I'll have an Android developer come up with, you know, and sit by me and say, you know, I don't understand, Kevin, my app has more downloads and has better ratings than the guy who's number 2, but he always gets featured and I've never been featured. I don't understand what's wrong with Google. And I always ask them, what do you think about the UX guidelines? And they'll tell me it's a bunch of shit, like I don't believe, you know, whatever it is that they tell me. And usually that's the answer. And so really, you know, if you're out there, you know, looking to build something in the consumer space, you want to get some featuring, whatever it is, you know, even building web stuff, look at the material design stuff that Google's doing. You know, make sure your mobile team is taking that into account if you are looking to get featuring in your app. And the reason we like it is we want, when a user comes to your app to use Chromecast, they know exactly how it's going to perform and behave. And so we really want someone to come in, it's intuitive, they click a button, they know what's going to happen, they pause, they scrub, they get that same consistent experience. So even before they've got to your app, they've been trained on how to use your app. So that's what we want. So here's some interesting just examples. Here you can see the difference between iPhone and Android and what the connected versus disconnected state kind of looks like. And so here on the left is a disconnected, like there's TVs in your living room, but you're not connected. On the right, you're connected. So the first probably year that we had this out, we changed the color. And we would say like black is disconnected and whatever your theme of your app is connected. And then we got so many complaints about colorblind people not being able to see it. We changed it to be filled in. So be smarter than Google when you design things, I guess is the point there. We support two modes. One is connect and play, and the other is play then connect. And so here's a picture of connect and play. So what it means is I have my phone and I say, wow, I'd like to play something on the TV. Let me connect to the TV, and then let me go ahead and play. And the other model would be, let me play it locally. Now that I have the thing playing, now I want to send it to the TV. So we did a bunch of UX testing. We found that half the people did one way, half the people did the other. And so we decided to go ahead and support them both. We got a great design checklist. Go through it, read it. Shows how to do all the different things. Very, very important. Recommend you read it a few times. It'll also explain a lot of the multi-sender stuff that you have to do for Chromecast. So for Chromecast, everyone in your living room has a phone or a phone and a tablet, and they're all remote controls, and they're all able to control. And so if I get something up in pause and you pick up your phone, it should know that it's in a pause state. So this goes through a lot of that and lets you know, gives you an overview of what you'll have to code. So now let's jump into the code, right? And what I want to start with is the sender. So remember the sender is the Chrome browser, and talk a little bit about that. Obviously it's a Chrome browser, so it's HTML5, JavaScript, CSS. Most of the heavy lifting is actually done in a Chrome extension. So you don't have to bring in a JavaScript file that brings a lot of bloat along. All that comes in the extension. And so if a user has the extension installed, then you'll get the Chromecast support. If you don't, then you won't. And so we just bind things, to the window object. And if you see those, then you know that the extension's installed and there's devices on your network. So I'll go through that here in a little bit. But there is one JS file that gives you more like basic callbacks and things like that. And that's the URL for that. So the first thing that you want to do when the window loads is check if you have cast and if is available, right? So you're basically checking, does the extension, is it there? Are things ready? And then there you can decide if you need to initialize things and get things up and running. Once you've done that, you can make what's called a session request. And so this is really saying, you've from the previous slide, you've decided I want to put, a cast icon, a little TV icon in my app for someone to click. And when someone clicks that, you'll want to create a session request. So you'll create a session request with your app ID, and then have some callbacks for a session listener and a receiver listener to consume those events. And then finally, you'll call initialize. And so that gets things sort of ready so that your app is ready for when someone clicks things in the Chromecast extension, that you'll be registered to those events. Next is the receiver listener that we defined. You'll get a callback every time a device comes online. So a lot of times, the Chromecast would be plugged into your television. And so when you do that, if your TV's powered off, your Chromecast won't be powered on. And so you won't see it on your local network. And then folks will come in, I want to watch this on my TV. They'll turn on their TV, the Chromecast comes on, and when it does come on, you'll get this callback. So very simple. The next thing you want to do, if someone does click that icon in your app, they click the icon, you'll want to execute the session request. And so here's a session request. You're going to define it and add a listener for the events, success and failure. And what happens when you make that session request is, you can see here someone in the bottom clicked on the cast icon, and what it actually does is up in the top from the Chrome extension, it brings down the list of devices. because the Chrome extension is doing all the heavy lifting for things. And so, you request a session, say, hey, I'd like your session. You're basically telling the Chrome extension, can you go out and establish a session for me? The next thing, once you have, the callbacks will happen, tell you it was successful. The next thing you'll want to do is, you'll have a play icon within your app where people can play content. And so there's a domain object called the media information, or media info, where you can define the URL, the MIME type, thumbnails, various information about that piece of media. And you'll create a load request. So load request, if you think back to like a DVD or a Blu-ray, you're loading that into the machine, but you're not actually playing it. You're just getting it ready. And then the last command would be play, which I didn't mention here. I'll skip the disconnect. That stuff's kind of confusing. Now let's talk about receivers, right? So we talked about the sender. So that all runs in the Chrome browser. That's the sender. Now we'll talk about the receiver. And I'll remind you, the receiver is a Chrome browser. So the dongle itself has a regular Chrome browser. It's very much like a single tab Chrome browser, like a Chrome browser with one tab. And that's running in your television or speaker. So it's Chrome, so it's HTML5, JavaScript, CSS, and then all the media specific stuff. We leverage the Chrome pipeline there. So the Chrome audio pipeline for web audio, EME for doing all the DRM stuff, MSE for adaptive protocols and things like that. So HLS and things like that. So we're really leveraging all the things that are in Chrome. So it's a nice, familiar environment for folks. So now I want to talk about getting started. So we have a few kind of canned out-of-the-box receivers where if you don't really want to write that code for the TV, you just want sort of a default experience that can play things. We have a default receiver that's very, very simple. And so it's written by Google. You just mention you'd like to use it in your sender, and it works very well. The next is a styled receiver, where it's the same, where you don't write any JavaScript, you don't write any HTML, but you can style it for yourself so that it looks and feels like your app just by defining some CSS classes. So here's some example. This is like our sample app. So there's a progress bar CSS class. Over here we have a splash screen. So you can define these. You can define all the text and things. So here where you see a yellow progress bar, if you were Red Bull TV, you'd make it red. You can do any theming. And so it really looks like it was created specifically by you, but it's really just you define a CSS class. So now I want to jump into writing a custom receiver. So this is where you have full control, just like you write any other web app, you would write the receiver that runs in the TV. So this would give you full control, whether it is a media-centric app, which I'm kind of talking about more here, or you're trying to write a game, or whatever. The possibilities are kind of limitless. People ask me, what can I build on Chromecast? And it's really, the answer is, well, anything you can do in a browser. So, definitely it's low power, low memory, but in general, anything that you could do in a browser, you can do here. So custom receivers, let's look at just the most simple hello world custom receiver to get things up and running. So you'll start by adding, in your web page, you've got a video tag. So you have one media element, your video tag. You've added a JavaScript file, a cast receiver JS. And I'm sure many of you know, a lot of the folks, kind of interesting trivia, a lot of the folks who do audio, they do it with a video tag as well. So it's kind of pretty common for folks who are playing audio to do it in a video tag. Now let's talk about the JavaScript. The first thing you'll want to do is set up a media manager and then pass it that one video tag. And so you've passed it off the video tag, and so that it's able to manipulate it, fire the same callbacks that you typically get when you do media. And then create a cast receiver manager, and then get an instance of that to singleton and start it. And so this is the simplest hello world, you can register all the callbacks that you want to be notified of people coming and leaving and all that. But this is all it takes to get started with a Chromecast app that can play video. So sort of a trivia question for folks, if you know a lot about the internals of Chromecast. If not, you'll learn, I guess. Does anyone know in the media manager here why I've defined just one media element? What if I want 2 videos or anything? Any ideas there? What's going on there? No. So I'll tell you. So the way that Chromecast works is we use Chrome. Everything is in the web except for one media element. So we take this one video and we suck it out of the web page and send it off to the Marvell chip. And there's a hardware decoder that's able to decode that video and play. And so Chromecast is highly optimized for one video to work very, very well. And so that's what we do here. And so a lot of people ask questions about doing picture-in-picture or sports things where they want to show multiple videos at once, and we don't really support that well. You can do it, but the performance that you'll get, the user experience would be very bad. So some of the limitations. Now I want to talk about messaging. So we have 2 ways of messaging. This is really sending data between the phone and the Chromecast or the cast receiver. One would be a message bus, and this is really where you're broadcasting out to everyone. Or we have a cast channel that's more point-to-point. So let's think about the experience where maybe you're writing a poker game, and you'd like to use the television as the face-up cards out on the board, and then everyone's phone as their face-down private cards, right? So the face-up cards, I'm going to broadcast those out to everyone on a cast message bus. But the face-down cards that you're holding privately in your hand and only you should know about are sent across on cast channels. And so these are the 2 ways of doing messaging. They're both supported very well, but they have very different use cases. Another thing I'll talk about is the fact that a sender, either a Chrome browser or an Android or an iPhone, only has the ability to message to the TV, to the receiver. It can't message to other senders. And so to do that, you'll need to send a message to the receiver, and then it would broadcast for you out on the message bus. Cool. So summarizing things really quickly, for doing the receiver development, there's one JavaScript file. Then we have a cast receiver manager. It's a singleton for dealing with connection, disconnection, all that sort of connectivity, life cycle events. Media manager lets you play, pause, seek, all those scrubbing events. And then, as we just mentioned, the cast message bus and the cast channel for broadcasting or point-to-point communications. So many of you may not be aware, but we've got a lot of great games out on Chromecast, and a lot more to come. So I always struggle to mention which ones because I work with all the things that haven't launched yet. So I know Scrabble Blitz. I think I can talk about the WGT Golf because that's been in our press stuff. The golf game is absolutely amazing. Monopoly Dash. I don't think I can talk, yeah. But lots of cool games. This one actually hasn't launched, but we demoed it at I.O. It's a lot of fun. You race a boat. But anyway, you can do lots of cool things with this. And, it's really not just for traditional TV or audio content. You can also do games. So it's a great, think about your living room. A lot of people obviously are building dashboards with Chromecast to look at their server, their sales, or whatever kind of metrics they want to show. It's a really, really good for that. So, this game in particular is a little bit different technology where they actually render. Some of them are WebGL, but this one in particular isn't. There's one called Tricky Titans where you throw stones at people. It's really good. It is WebGL, but this one in particular, you take your phone and you render a second screen, second view from the phone, and then that kind of gets mirrored to the Chromecast. And so you can, if you're an Android developer, an iOS developer, you could just write everything there, and it would do both. And so it's controlling both, just for this particular game. But yeah, you can do WebGL, you know, lots of, you know, all the Canvas stuff and things like that. So. I believe there's SVG support. I haven't worked with anyone using it though, but there should be, yeah, there should be there. Yeah, cool. So debugging is probably one of the biggest sort of developer strengths for Chromecast. So it actually uses the Chrome Dev Tools. So you can actually take your Chrome browser, connect it up to your TV, and debug that just by knowing the IP address of your dongle. And so then you can do all the breakpoints, you know, debugger commands. That's one of my favorites. So I always put that in there. If you haven't used debugger, it's like a breakpoint typed out. I love those. So I use it all the time. And then obviously console dir and all those things is all available. So has anyone outside of Chromecast used the Chrome remote debugging stuff? Anybody? Yeah, what did you guys use it for? For what? But have you done the remote? Yeah, so Chrome on Android is where this is really, really cool. So the startup I ran before joining Google, we had scrolling performance problems on mobile. You know, and it scrolls great everywhere else, and so there was no way to debug this issue. And so we used this a lot for that. We also had different, you know, with responsive, some of the layouts were different and things like that. It's really hard to, even though you can resize, it's just, we couldn't reproduce the problem anywhere but on a phone. But on a phone, you don't have access to your console and your logs and things. Can't inspect things. And so what you can actually do is take your Chrome in your laptop and then have its debugger connected to your phone. So there's a few clicks. It's really, really easy. And so sort of tip and trick outside of the Chromecast world, I recommend everybody check it out if you have those problems, because it's really good. You can do all change the content and things. So you guys have good experiences? Yeah, it's an absolute, yeah. We spent definitely like wasted 2 weeks chasing our tail before we figured out how to do this. And then, so definitely check it out. It's the same for Chromecast. It's good. Cool. So how do you do the receiver debugging? You just open a browser, type the IP of your dongle, and then put port 9222, and it just automatically puts you in this remote debugging experience. So it's super easy. The next thing, kind of another little trivia piece, one of the things that we ask people to do is setting the max inactivity interval to a high number. So here, 10 minutes. And this is specifically important for iOS developers. So does anybody know why I'd want to set a max inactivity interval high for iOS developers? iOS senders? Anyone? Any guesses? Mike's thinking hard. Yeah, that's probably, so what happens is, if an iOS developer pauses on a breakpoint, iOS is sort of single-threaded in nature, not exactly, but it stops all the threads in the debugger. And so you have this constant sort of ping-pong happening, where the phone says ping, the receiver says pong, back and forth, to make sure that that client is still up. And so if you don't change this to a high number, basically what this says is an iOS developer can pause on a breakpoint for 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, the TV says, oh, he's gone, and then starts shutting everything down. So if you don't do this, after being on a breakpoint for a short period of time, after 30 seconds, all of a sudden, all of your, he starts disconnecting the client, and a lot of unexpected behavior happens. So Android has background daemons and service, in the form of services, where a lot of this happens, and you don't have to do that. Cool. So the next point there, you can up the log level. It's like most people don't know how to do this. Gives you all kinds of information about your DRM and license key handshakes and things like that. So, and then all the console log, console dir, debugger, all the breakpoints, all that stuff works on Chromecast really well. Cool. So resources, where can you go for more? To learn more, developergoogle.com/cast. This is where you can find all the info. Read the design checklist a couple times. Stack Overflow, which many of you may or may not have figured out by now, but Google's a big supporter of Stack Overflow. And so our preferred method of people like asking questions is on Stack Overflow. And we actually have a team of people on the Chromecast team who a large part of their job is answering questions on Stack Overflow, making sure the right answers are out there, making sure that people are getting those answers that others are able to read. And so it's a really nice community for folks to go out and get help. And you can look at has anyone else answered this question before? And then the last one, we have a Google Plus developer community. That's a great place. All the announcements and new SDKs and new samples, and it's really a great place to keep up to date with all the changes. Sample apps are out on GitHub, github.com/GoogleCast. And then we have a Cast Videos app, which is almost like a realistic app that you would build. And so if you're looking to do something, grab, steal, copy and paste as much from that, because it's a fully UX compliant app. This is a great place to look and learn how to do it correctly, but it's a really, really big kind of complex app. There's a lot to it. The other two apps, the Hello Videos is kind of similar to the slides that I showed today. So this is just what's the bare minimal amount of code I can do to get a video on the screen. And then the Hello Text is what's the bare minimal amount of code I can write to send a message from the phone or from the Chrome browser up to the TV. And so those are the samples. We have a bunch more samples, but these are the good ones to start. So how do you get started? We have some flowcharts that walk you through whether you need a custom receiver, whether you can use our styled receiver, kind of looking at the data that you have. Go get those sample apps. Make sure that you have your environment fully set up so you can run those. And then modify those. If you do have video content you want to play, just modify the sample app and see if you can get your videos working in it. And then, off to the races, read the UX guidelines, and go build something. So with that, happy casting. Cool. Any questions? Yeah.
Does the Chromecast have, for the receiver, does it have local storage?
So it does and it doesn't. Like it does have local storage, but that gets deleted after your app comes down. And so, after someone's done watching a movie, if they shut down, then it's gone. So technically local storage is there, but it gets deleted. So you can think of it like a single tab incognito session. Is very similar. Yeah, we had a question. Yeah.
Does it support all the languages?
It's just like the Chrome browser. So if you wanted to do CoffeeScript or, it's a Chrome browser. So you can write JavaScript in it. Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yep, just like Chrome browser. Yep.
And then for Chromecast, what is the minimum bandwidth requirement? Is it 3 MB or?
It depends on your app. So there's no minimum bandwidth. If you were writing tic-tac-toe, it would be really, really low.
Right. What about like Wi-Fi? G-Wells or N, AC or Wi-Fi?
Yeah, so the version that's shown in the picture here, right, this supports everything you just mentioned, right? So 5 gigahertz and 2.4. The old original is only 2.4. And so if you live in a high-rise complex with, in Silicon Valley, it's a pretty bad experience. And so that's why we launched the 5 gigahertz. But then these devices, a lot of people don't know, but you can actually, through the micro USB, you can actually do Ethernet over micro USB. So you can actually hardwire the Ethernet as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah, question?
YouTube has a big screen UI, it's kind of hidden, but that thing can act as a receiver, which is, I was pretty amazed when I found that out. So is that overcast? Does that mean you can overcast receivers?
It's a bit of a, I mildly hesitate to answer, but we don't really, it doesn't work well. So you can write a receiver and then embed YouTube in an iframe. It is possible to do that, but your app would probably have trouble to get featured. And the reason being is, the buttons like skip ad and things like that, you can't get those down. And so it's like putting some buttons.
What it means is that the laptop itself can act as a Chromecast, so I can actually
Oh.
cast to the laptop. I'm guessing maybe it uses the cast extension, or maybe it's something that happens.
You're talking about the mirroring, or?
It lets the YouTube app on my phone cast to my laptop.
Oh,
which is
oh.
to TV.
So what was the question then? Sorry.
I'm saying, is that using cast, or is it just using the same UI?
I don't know. It's probably some WebRTC based thing, similar to our mirroring. I don't know that much about that. Yeah. More questions?
So what is the latest model of things that you like to use the word?
We just call it Chromecast. I don't know. Chromecast and Chromecast audio. Yeah. Earth and Hendrix is the off-the-record internal names. I don't know. Yeah. Question.
So when you stream your desktop to
Yeah.
Chromecast,
Mhm.
it seems to have the same resolution. Is there an option to manipulate resolution? So for example, with my laptop, I can stream 4K quality.
Yeah, so it uses WebRTC, and then it's sort of a adaptive bitrate. And so depending on your network, it may be macro blocked and things like that, but if you have a good network, it'll stream very, very well. But the experience you'll get in mirroring is, something like an AirPlay or on Chromecast mirroring is nowhere near as good as what you'll get for an app that's cast enabled. And the reason being is mirroring is live. Where when you watch Netflix, something like that, you're watching a VOD type content, video on demand content, we actually will download 30 seconds of content and have it, in the decoder there, so that if the Wi-Fi goes up and down, you won't even notice because you have, you've pre-cached a lot of that content. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But as far as manipulating it, there isn't any APIs or we have something called zero config that is basically what it sounds like, zero configuration. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
Let's say the app written for it, is it support responsive design on a scale different between the side and the
It's the same CSS and JavaScript. You can do a responsive design, but typically you don't have to worry about that in TVs, right? So you can either do 1080p or 720, so on the TV, but the resolutions are fixed on monitors. Yeah.
So you mentioned that custom apps need to be Google approved. So does that mean if I want to start on one of those, or do I put the Chromecast in developer mode, or can I just put stuff straight into a page and I've got the extension?
Yeah. So the way that so if you wanted to take your website and cast enable, there's a developer console where you tell Google, hey, I'd like to register an app ID. So my app ID will say it's 1234. And I want, when someone tries to load 1234, I want this URL to come on the TV. And that's how it works.
So what about, you mentioned doing internal dashboards or something?
Sure.
So you would go ahead and register something even if it's only on an intranet, right?
Yeah, so the reason that we do that, there's probably more reasons, but one of the real reasons is so that we have the ability, if apps are in violation of terms of service, that we can turn them off. So you don't send a URL to the TV, you send an app ID that configures to URL. So if you're doing, I don't know, illegal gambling or child pornography or whatever it is that, there's lots of illegal things out there. And that's, to be in this space, because of, folks like Disney and all these big studios, they require these types of things for it to work out. So, yeah. Yeah, question?
Is it possible to cast multiple TVs from one device?
So, I personally think it is. So I've asked that question many times. I've actually never written an app to try to do it. And I don't know of anyone who's ever done it. But I do think, I take that back. I know it's possible to do it on Android. It's just something that we don't test for. So you can open multiple apps and cast to different TVs. Within the same app, I don't know.
Well, how would you synchronize between two TVs if they actually
Oh, so there isn't, I thought you meant like different content, like play one movie here and then play something else over here. And they're totally, it's probably possible to have two independent sessions running at once, but it's not like something, like we designed the code to do that, but nobody tested it. But as far as syncing, like audio syncing, we're only syncing audio content, not video content, for like multi-zone type stuff, because I think that's a little bit more common use case. One of the things kind of interesting about Google that I found was, especially the Chromecast product, we're very much focused on, the next billion users or next 100 million users or whatever. So people often tell me, did you know it doesn't work in a hotel? Well, it's not the next billion people don't live in hotels, right? You spend a few days a week. I spend a little more, but, hotels, they tell me it doesn't work well for schools. We know that. And we really, the things that we're trying to do in games is really about reaching all the homes, not trying to be the best gaming platform out there. So, yeah. Any other, yeah. Oh, just if you have poor Wi-Fi or you don't have Wi-Fi, there's too much congestion, then you can plug it into a port. So in my home, I hardwire Ethernet all my Chromecast. My one TV has 4 of them in it because there's various versions of kind of the alpha, the beta, the gaming one, and I keep them all on wired internet because obviously you get good performance.
So does that mean that it actually can play from a local storage, mass?
You could, yeah, definitely. So there's a lot of apps, Plex is probably the most popular one, but yeah, cool. So I think I'll wrap things up. I'm happy to stick around and more questions if anybody has them, just I'll be around. So thanks everybody.